Tan Cam ran back toward the library in a frantic, desperate rush, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the terrifying memories of the night pressed heavily on her mind. Seeing her friend's sudden, reckless movement, Duong Thi Thi looked at her with deep bewilderment and concern, calling out in a strained, worried voice, "Why on earth are you running back to that dreadful place? Didn't you just barely escape from its clutch? Is with your life?" "There is still someone trapped inside that horror," Tan Cam replied, her voice trembling but filled with determination as she glanced toward the horizon. "I have to go back and see what has happened to them. Besides, look, the sun is finally rising, the morning light is here. It should be safer now." "Then let us call Look two men to go with us," Duong Thi Thi suggested quickly, her eyes darting around the lingering shadows. "Having him there will undoubtedly make things much safer for us." Tan Cam stopped in her tracks and turned back, her curious eyes locking on Duong Thi Thi. It was becoming increasingly obvious that Duong Thi Thi held deep, special feelings for Look two men. In the moments of gravest peril, when the icy grip of death felt nearest, a woman's heart instinctively turned to the one man she held dearest. Realizing that her closest friend had completely read her innermost thoughts, Duong Thi Thi felt a warm flush creep up her pale cheeks, and she muttered in shy embarrassment, "What are you staring at me like that for? Aren't you also in a frantic panic, rushing back into danger just to save that beloved lover of yours?" "What lover are you talking about?" Tan Cam protested, her heart fluttering nervously. "It is just that I absolutely do not want that spoiled, reckless spendthrift of a man to lose his life because of me, that is all." Deep down her thoughts raced in anxious denial. How could I ever actually like a man like him? He is incredibly annoying, infuriating, and obnoxious. By the time the two women finally arrived at the grim, imposing structure of the library, the morning air was shattered by the harsh, flashing blue and red lights of numerous police cars parked haphazardly outside. The scene was chaotic. Several solemn-faced police officers standing guard informed them in hushed grave tones that a dead body had been discovered deep inside the library, and they were currently sealing off the entire crime scene to prevent anyone from entering the horrors within. Hearing this, an icy wave of dread washed over Tan Cam, leaving her limbs feeling completely weak and numb. Could it be? Had Luong met a gruesome demise inside? He was supposed to be the direct descendant of a legendary, powerful exorcist, possessed of ancient spiritual knowledge. How could someone like him be killed so easily, so silently, by the malevolent forces lurking in the dark? Duong Thi Thi saw her friend trembling and quickly reached out to comfort her, rubbing her shoulder. "Do not panic just yet," she whispered urgently. "Let us find out exactly what happened and get some clear answers first." Just at that agonizing moment of suspense, their eyes caught a glimpse of a familiar, reassuring figure moving through the crowd of officers. It was two men. Relieved, the two women immediately called out his name as loudly as they could. "Two men, two men." Seeing them standing there amidst the flashing lights, a look of profound relief swept over Look two men's stressed face. He ran over to them, immediately reaching out to grasp Tan Cam's hands tightly in his own, as he said in a voice thick with emotion, "Oh, thank God. I was absolutely worried sick about you." The moment Luong frantically reported to the station that you had gone missing, our entire squad was mobilized to search everywhere for you. "So Luong, is he still alive?" Tan Cam asked breathlessly, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Of course he is too," Min replied with a slight, weary chuckle. You know what they say. Good people die young, but the troublesome ones always seem to cling to life forever. Seeing herself completely ignored in the emotional reunion, Duong Thi, this face instantly fell, a dark pout forming on her lips. Noticing the sudden shift in her mood, and the hurt look on her face, too, Min quickly turned his attention to her, asking with genuine care, Thank heavens you are back safe as well. Thi Thi, are you all right? Are you injured anywhere? Where on earth have you been hiding all this time? There is absolutely no time to explain all the terrifying details to you right now, Tan Cam interrupted urgently, her eyes wide with anxiety. Please just take us inside so we can see Kalu Ong right away. Inside a cramped, dimly lit room of the library, Kaluong was nervously giving his official statement to an officer. The moment his eyes landed on Tan Cam walking through the door, his face lit up in sheer panic and relief. He scrambled to his feet and lunged desperately toward her, but in his reckless haste, he clumsily tripped over the leg of a wooden chair, crashing heavily onto the cold, hard floor in a chaotic heap. Tan Kitten, you aren't dead yet, Kalu. Ong groaned from the floor, scrambling back up to his feet. You are the one who is going to die. Tan Cam snapped back, though relief washed over her. How could I ever die so easily? To tell you the honest-to-God truth, Kalu, Ong muttered, rubbing his bruised shin, I was absolutely terrified for you just now. When exactly did you call the police? Tan Cam demanded, wanting to piece together the timeline of horror. It was while I was scanning through those ancient books, Kalu, Ong explained, his voice lowering to a fearful whisper. Suddenly you were just gone, vanished without a trace. Then as I searched for you, I stumbled upon a nightmare. I saw the two librarians. One of them was slumped dead right in front of the computer screen, and the other was collapsed lifelessly on the floor. Horrified, I immediately called the police because I assumed that whatever took them had also dragged you away, and that your chances of survival were practically zero. Watching their banter, Duong Thi Thi spoke up in exasperation. Are you two seriously going to stand here and bicker like this forever? We are dealing with a horrific tragedy here. Let Look To Min explain to us what is actually going on. Look To Min let out a grim, humorless chuckle before his face hardened into a mask of professional gravity. The terrifying truth is, he began in a low, chilling tone, the way those two librarians were killed is a carbon copy of what happened to your poor friend Lamke. Their eyeballs were violently gouged from their sockets, and then placed to soak in bowls of water. Because of this gruesome signature, we in the department are strongly suspecting that we are dealing with a sadistic serial killer. The perpetrator is either an unimaginably cruel, depraved monster, or perhaps they belong to some fanatical, bloodthirsty occult cult. Just then the door to the inner room swung open, and the forensic pathologists stepped out. Their face is pale and drawn from the horrors they had just witnessed. They gave a solemn, respectful nod to two men as they wheeled the body bags past. Look To Min turned back to the group and said, all right, let us leave this dreadful place and head back to the precinct. My duties at this crime scene are officially complete. The four of them piled into the cramped, cold police cruiser to head back to the precinct. While Look To Min focused on his duty, a suffocating shroud of pure terror hung over the other three. Tan Cam sat in the back seat trembling, holding Hak Bao tightly against her chest. The poor black cat had sustained minor injuries during the chaotic nightmare. Its leg was damaged, making it impossible for the creature to walk normally. Seeking warmth and safety, it snuggled deeply in't, Tan Cam's lap resting its fragile, furry head gently against her arm. With tears stinging her eyes, Tan Cam lovingly stroked its sleek, velvety black fur, trying to find some shred of comfort in its quiet presence. The police precinct was located within a looming, sterile, high-rise building that seemed to stretch coldly in't the gray morning sky. Together, the four of them entered the building and rode the elevator up in't the sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors. As they walked, two men continuously and stubbornly insisted that this whole horrific affair was a calculated, cold-blooded case of serial murder, completely rejecting any supernatural theories or notions of ritualistic suicide. Finally, her patience wearing paper thin under the weight of the horrors they had witnessed, Thi Thi snapped and argued back vehemently, "Two men, please listen to me. It is not like that at all. The unspeakable entity behind these horrific deaths is absolutely not human. If a human didn't commit these murders, then what men asked with a skeptical, dismissive scoff, are you going to tell me a ghost did it?" His casual, joking words hung in the cold air, instantly freezing the atmosphere. The three of them went completely stiff, their bodies turning numb with sheer dread as the blood drained entirely from their face, leaving them deathly pale. In that horrifying silence, a grim and paralyzing thought gripped each of their minds as they vividly imagined the gruesome, agonizing fate that would inevitably catch up and destroy them all. Seeing the sheer, unadulterated terror etched on't the faces of his companions, two men's expression darkened and a wave of deep irritation washed over him. "All of you are highly educated, intelligent individuals with respectable degrees," two men muttered, shaking his head in sheer disbelief. "How on earth can you blindly fall prey to such absurd, superstitious nonsense?" "You are dead wrong. Two men." Tan Cam spoke up, her voice trembling but grave. "This is a deadly serious matter, and we are in grave danger." "What exactly is supposed to be real here?" Two men scoffed defensively. "Are you honestly trying to convince me that ghosts actually exist in this physical world?" Two men, "Just because your eyes have not witnessed it does not mean it does not exist," Tan Cam snapped, her frustration boiling over. She was incredibly annoyed by this man's sheer heated stubbornness. He absolutely refused to believe a single word of the harrowing experience, that she, Thi Thi, and Luong had desperately tried to explain to him. "Tan Cam, it is not that I completely doubt your san." Two men tried to explain, softening his voice slightly but remaining firm. "But this is something that no rational mind can just accept overnight. Do you truly expect a law enforcement officer like me to write in a police report that our primary suspect, our killer, is some intangible, illusory phantom from the spirit world? It is not a damn illusion, it is real, and it is hunting us right now." Duong Thi Thi flared up in pure unbridled anger, the terrifying memories of the malevolent female ghost fueling her fury. Her sharp, emotional outburst was like pouring gasoline on't an already raging fire. Fine. If all of you want to wallow in these delusions, I am not going to waste my breath arguing with you any more. Two men said, raising his hands in defeat. "I am going upstairs to retrieve some files. Just do me a favor and stop spinning these absurd tales all right." Realizing he had deeply offended and angered everyone, he decided it was best to make a swift, temporary retreat. Stumping out of the room in a huff of pure frustration, two men felt completely alienated, utterly unable to comprehend what had possessed the minds of those three. Back in the room, Kaluang turned his gaze to Tan Kam, staring at her with genuine concern as he spoke softly, "Are you all right?" "I honestly had no idea your boyfriend could be so impassibly stubborn and blind to the truth. Who on earth told you that he is my boyfriend?" Tan Kam retorted, her voice cracking with a mixture of overwhelming stress and fury, as hot tears welled up in her eyes. "You are just babbling nonsense again." This infuriating, God-forsaken Kaluang was truly a magnet for trouble, always sticking his nose where it didn't belong. Duong Thi Thi gently wrapped her arms around the trembling Tan Kam, pulling her close to offer what little comfort she could. As she did, Thi Thi quietly looked back and forth between Tan Kam and Kaluang. In her heart, she realized they were actually a match made in heaven, their bickering masking a deep connection. How could someone like the rigid, unimaginative look to Min ever be the right lover for a girl like Tan Kam anyway? Min, while out in the cold, echoing hall, Look to Min stood waiting for the elevator to arrive, his mind still intensely preoccupied with the gruesome details of the double homicide at the library. The elevator doors slid open with a metallic hiss. But the moment he stepped inside the empty metal cabin, a harsh screeching overload alarm blared through the confined space, warning of excess weight. Startled and utterly annoyed, he barked out in frustration to the empty shaft, "What a cheap piece of garbage elevator! We've barely used this system for a few days, and it's already malfunctioning and going haywire." With a violent grinding screech of metal against metal, the heavy doors slowly struggled to pull shut, closing out the light of the hallway. The elevator began its slow, agonizing ascent, crawling upward floor by floor through the dark shaft even, though there was absolutely no one else inside the cabin besides Look To Min. Standing alone in the dim light, he ground his teeth in pure annoyance, his mind flashing back to the smug, irritating face of that damn Kaluang. What a total, untrustworthy rascal, he thought bitterly. He couldn't comprehend why on earth Tan Kam would place so much blind trust and faith in a shady charlatan like him, ignoring the cold, hard logic of a police officer who only wanted to keep her safe. As it turned out, he was burning with a bitter, toxic jealousy toward Kaluang. For the past several agonizing days, he had practically lived at the police station, desperately hoping to unearth some shred of clues in the gruesome Lam key case just so he could have an excuse to talk to Tan Kam. He never expected that the slick rogue opportunist Kaluang would seize this exact moment of his absence to shamelessly flirt with his beloved Tan Kam. It ate away at him, especially since he felt that the way she looked at him was no longer filled with the warmth and intimacy they once shared. Suddenly, without warning, the elevator ground to an abrupt, violent halt, hanging suspended in the pitch-black shaft. Look To Min repeatedly banged his fist against the heavy doors and frantically mashed the up button, but the heavy, still carriage refused to budge even a fraction of an inch. A cold knot of dread tightened in his stomach as he realized something was horribly wrong. He pounded on the elevator door again, but there was no hollow metallic echo to answer him. It felt as though his knuckles were sinking into a soft, squishy, flesh-like substance rather than a solid steel barrier. Pressing the button again only brought a sensation that made his skin crawl. It felt soft, spongy, and disgustingly slick, exactly like pressing his finger into a thick, wet glob of mucus that hadn't been wiped away. A deep, instinctual wave of revulsion washed over him. A strange, foul odor began to seep into the cramped metallic cabin, but he tried not to question it too much, as it was not uncommon for the forensic autopsy staff to transport severed human limbs or decaying animal carcass is up and down these elevators. But today the stench was undeniably suffocating, thick with a sickening rat. He furrowed his brow and clicked his tongue in irritation, forcing himself to ignore the foul odor. The elevator shuddered back to life and continued its upward ascent, soon arriving at his office floor. Stepping out of the elevator, he immediately hurried down the corridor toward the restroom to wash his hands. Suddenly a sharp, violent cramp seized his stomach, twisting his insides with agonizing pain. Grabbing a few sheets of toilet paper from the counter in a frenzy, he rushed into one of the stalls. As he pulled down his trousers and sat down, an eerie, unnatural sensation crept over him. He slowly looked down into the depths of the toilet bowl. He could not believe his own eyes, and what he saw paralyzed him with absolute horror. The toilet bowl was filled to the brim with human eyeballs. What was truly bizarre was that these disembodied eyes were completely devoid of blood. They were perfectly round, pale, and horribly white, staring directly up at him with unblinking, glassy pupils. For a few agonizing seconds, he froze, locked in a silent stare down with them, until sanity crashed back in it, his mind causing him to let out a blood-curdling shriek and frantically pull up his pants. Standing trembling by the restroom door, he cursed under his breath, muttering about which heartless, depraved forensic examiner could have dumped a pile of human eyeballs down the toilet and left them there without even bothering to flush. Deep down he knew that no medical examiner would ever be so incredibly negligent and irresponsible. He only spoke those words to keep his fragile sanity from shattering. Steaming with dread, he leaned back inside the stall, staring at the heap of human eyes staring back at him. Goosebumps broke out across his entire body, yet he forced his shaking hand toward the flush lever. He pulled the lever, and the toilet flushed with a loud, roaring gurgle, but the sickening stench from earlier exploded in it, the air thicker and more suffocating than before. With a jolt of pure horror, he realized that the swirling fluid was not water at all. It was blood. A deluge of thick, metallic, foul-smelling crimson blood poured down over the eyeballs. Yet they refused to wash away. They bobbed and spun lazily in the swirling vortex of blood, their dead pupils rolling upward as if mocking his helpless terror. Sensing an overwhelming, malevolent presence, he knew he had to escape immediately. When he had first arrived, the corridor was completely empty, yet now he saw countless figures sitting, slumped on the ground, crowding the floor. What was even more unsettling was that every single one of them had their heads deeply bowed face is hidden in shadow. He did not dare to look at them for long, keeping his eyes downcast as he hurriedly pushed his way past them. In reality, when he looked back, the corridor was completely empty and silent. His only thought was to run down stairs to find Tan Cam and the others, and warn them about the madness. As he bolted toward the elevator lobby to press the call button, he froze when he discovered that dark, thick blood was slowly oozing from the edges of the elevator button. The elevator light flickered and blinked erratically in the dim light, and as he looked closer, he realized that the button was actually a wet human eyeball. No wonder it had felt so wet, slimy, and disgustingly slippery when he had pressed it earlier. Look, two men did not rise to the rank of a top detective in the criminal investigation unit by panicking easily. Forcing himself to stay calm, he drew his service pistol from its holster, his grip tight and steady. He abandoned the haunted elevator and moved cautiously toward the emergency stair hearing nothing but the sharp, echoing scrape of his own footsteps and the deafening, frantic thudding of his heart. As he rounded the corner into the dim stair, he caught sight of a human silhouette. The figure was collapsed on the cold concrete floor, curling up with hands, desperately clutching there, head groaning, as if suffering from an excruciating illness. He tightened his grip on his gun and cautiously advanced the dark silhouette. It belonged to an elderly woman. He reasoned that perhaps she had tripped and fallen down the stairs after exiting the elevator. "What is wrong, ma'am? Are you all right?" The old woman lay face down on the floor, her entire body twitching and convulsing violently, so consumed by agonizing pain that no words could escape her lips. He knelt down and tried to roll her over to inspect her injuries and see what was wrong. The old woman's face was masked by her dry, wrinkled hands, but fresh, dark crimson blood was oozing rapidly from between her gnarled fingers. He firmly pulled her hands away from her face, only to see two empty, hollow, pitch black sockets. The eyes of that old woman were completely gone. Recoiling in sheer terror, he stumbled backward, when suddenly he heard the old woman speak in a chilling, mournful voice. "Why did you keep poking my eyes just now? Why did you have to poke so hard in't my eyes like that? I didn't do that. Back there, inside the elevator, you kept trying to poke your finger deep in't my eye." A ghost, the horrifying realization paralyzed him, leaving him completely unable to move a muscle. The old woman began to drag herself across the cold floor, crawling and slithering toward him, her hollow voice chanting relentlessly as she approached. "Why did you poke my eyes out? Give me back my eyes, give them back to me right now. Return my eyes to me." He scrambled backward in panic. Whipping his head around to find an escape route, he saw that behind him were countless duplicates of the same old woman, crawling out from the shadows across the floor, down from the ceiling, and scaling the walls like spiders. He was completely surrounded, trapped in the center of a living nightmare. Every single one of these old women looked unnervingly identical. Their face is streaked with fresh, dripping blood from their empty eye sockets, screaming in unison in a deafening, discordant shriek, "Give me back my eyes. Give them back to me right now." Seeing the horde of demonic specters closing in on him, their bloody hands reaching out, he lost all control and frantically squeezed the trigger of his gun in a desperate attempt to defend himself. The thunderous, deafening blasts of the gun shattered the silence of the building, alerting everyone downstairs. Downstairs, Tan Cam and the others were in the middle of a loud, heated argument when the sharp, explosive sound of gunshots reverberated through the ceiling. Hackbow let out a terrified, high-pitched shriek. Tan Cam immediately sensed that something was terribly wrong and yelled, "We have to go right now. Something terrible has happened to Look Two Men." Hackbow took the lead, running frantically to show the way, with the other three charging close behind him. When they finally arrived, they were met with a terrifying sight. Look Two Men was standing precariously on the very edge of an open window, blindly stepping backward, as if trying to retreat from something invisible in front of him. Hackbow let out a desperate cry, which made Look Two Men hesitate, and pause his backward step for a split second. Seizing that brief window of opportunity, Luong lunged forward with incredible speed, climbing up to reach Two Men's side. But at that exact agonizing moment, the window frame gave way and broke loose, sending Look Two Men falling backward out of the high-rise window along with the detached window. Moving with the lightning reflex is of a wild animal, Luong threw himself flat on't, his stomach over the ledge, his arms shooting downward to catch hold of Look Two Men's arm just in time. With a sickening, thunderous crash, the heavy metal window frames smashed violently into the ground far below. Everything had unfolded with such terrifying speed that Tan Cam and Thi could only stand frozen in place, their mouths agape in sheer shock. It took them a moment to regain their senses, but they quickly scrambled up to the window ledge to help Kaluang pull two men up. Look, two men was dangling helplessly in the open air, suspended outside a window on the teenaged floor of the massive skyscraper. Kaluang's face was turning a deep bruised purple from the immense strain, while Tan Cam wrapped her arms tightly around him and Thi, her weight behind Tan Cam, locking her arms around her. With every ounce of strength in their bodies, the three of them strained and pulled to haul Look two men back inside. After finally pulling two men up to safety, all four of them collapsed onto the dirty floor in a heap. Kaluang teased two men through his deep gasps. "Hey there, officer of the people, I think it's high time you went on a diet." Look, two men lay motionless, his mind still trapped in the clutches of the horrifying ordeal, his eyes wide and staring blankly in shock. Thi quickly stood up, her voice trembling but urgent as she tried to rally the group. "We need to move quickly. We have to leave this place immediately. I can feel it. It is extremely dangerous here." Summoning their remaining strength, the four of them scrambled to their feet, desperate to escape this accursed demonic building as fast as possible. Now safe but deeply traumatized, Look, two men sat utterly paralyzed and slumped in the far corner of a sofa, while the others gathered round, staring at him with deep concern and quiet sympathy reflecting in their eyes. The glass cup, gripped tightly in his hand, had finally stopped its violent rattling. After a long, heavy silence that felt like an eternity, he let out a long, ragged breath and finally spoke. "How could such a thing even be possible? I must go see a psychiatrist immediately. My mind is unraveling and I am starting to see terrifying hallucinations." The other three, without a single word of warning, simultaneously hurled whatever they happened to be holding in their hand, thick magazines, heavy slippers, and crumpled newspapers, directly at Look, two men. They screamed at him in a furious, synchronized chorus. "You really are completely beyond help. Look, two men, you were literally inches from being brutally slaughtered by a vengeful ghost. Yet here you are, sitting comfortably and claiming it was all just a mere hallucination." Thi said, her voice dripping with sharp reproach, looking at him with deep disappointment, as if she had severely misjudged him, mistakenly believing he was a man of high intelligence. "All right, forget about him. Just let him go and see his psychiatrist." Tan Cam spoke up, her voice weary. The entire group instantly agreed with her and decided it was time to escape that cursed, towering, high-rise building. The pitiful Look, two men pleaded in a desperate, whimpering voice, all right, please, I am so sorry. Let us just stick together and keep solving this dark case." Hearing this, everyone cheered in joyful relief. The group finally made their way back to this house. Although they had only been at this place few days prior, everyone felt as if an agonizingly long eternity had passed, as if they had lived through an entire century of terror. Sinking deeply into the welcoming warmth of the soft, comfortable sofa, a profound sense of peace and relief washed over them. In the quiet of their minds, they all silently prayed, thank heaven to still be alive and drawing breath in this world. At this very moment is a happiness beyond words. They sat down around the table to eat together. As they ate, Tan Cam began to recount in vivid, chilling detail all the horrifying events that had transpired over the past few days. The expressions on their faces is grew heavier, darker, and more solemn with every passing word, yet the creeping dread could not shatter their iron resolve to fight back against the darkness. My family is legendary for our ghost hunting heritage. I am absolutely determined to capture this entity. I cannot and will not allow it to continue taking innocent lives. As a dedicate, police officer, I swear I will crack this case wide open, no matter who or what the culprit is. I will never allow this killer to roam free, mucking the law. I must break this terrifying curse, otherwise I know that my own life will be forfeit, and I will end up dead. I have to save myself and all of you. I cannot let that malevolent female ghost continue to destroy and harm the people I love and cherish. The four of them locked hands, gripping each other tightly as a cold sweat broke out, bound by a fierce determination to find a way to shatter the horrific Cub-Bang curse. Together they turned their gaze toward the window. Even though the night outside was pitch black and swallowing all light, they could still clearly perceive a highly luxurious, imposing off-road vehicle slowly pulling up and stopping right in front of the house. Thi Thi and Look, two men gasped, paralyzed with sheer terror, and collapsed heavily back into their chairs because there was a spectral figure floating, completely suspended in midair. The figure manifesting outside the house was remarkably handsome. He was relentlessly blowing sweet, dramatic kisses to the terrified people huddled inside. Tan Cam turned to look at Kalu, Ong with a highly strained, awkward smile. Kalu, Ong's deceased grand, father had decided to make his grand, ghostly appearance once again. In the blink of an eye, the spirit materialized directly before them inside the room. He picked up an apple, inhaled its scent deeply, and spoke to Tan Cam in a dramatic tone. My dear junior sister, a single day spent without seeing you feels as agonizingly long as 3 whole years. Your senior brother has specially composed a beautiful poem to present to you. Kaluang cried out in absolute, horrified panic, Grandfather. He stared with his eyes wide open in utter astonishment. Could it really be that his own dead grandfather was actively trying to flirt with Tan Cam? If this bizarre trend continued, sooner or later, she would end up becoming his own grandmother. Thi Thi and Look, two men, also began to understand what was happening. They realized that this bizarre, handsome spirit was indeed Kaluang's deceased grandfather. The two of them, shaking with residual fear, cautiously crawled out from underneath the dining table where they had sought refuge. Junior sister, in the old days, your absolute favor, a thing was listening to me recite poetry. Do you still remember when your senior brother recited the lines by the bed? Side the bright moonlight shines for you. Back then, you were so incredibly happy. The youthful-looking grandfather was once again squandering his 3 precious minutes of daily manifestation on useless, nonsensical flirting. Sir, I do not know you at all, please. Our age are so vastly different. How could I possibly have known you? Hearing her words, the youthful grandfather paused, finding her logic reasonable. However, he immediately defended himself. If my junior sister passed away many years ago, and if she was indeed reincarnated, then she would probably be exactly about this age by now. But I have absolutely no memory of my past life. Perhaps you could recount those memories for me so I can understand. The two of them, one human and one ghost, one male and one female, kept pacing in circles around the dining table. One adamantly insisted she was not his beloved junior sister, while the other stubborn spirit refused to back down, fiercely claiming that she was. The others simply lowered their heads in stunned silence, finding this entire supernatural scene utterly surreal and hard to believe. All too quickly, the 3 minutes of his manifestation were drawing to an end. The youthful grandmother looked deeply heartbroken, completely overwhelmed by a wave of profound despair. No wonder the ancients said that the most agonizing thing in this world is to meet each other yet fail to recognize one another. It seems you have completely forgotten our past very well. I must depart. I will grant you a dream of memories filled with the beautiful moments shared between you and me. You kids should watch it too. Once you have watched it, you will know just how deeply romantic and chivalrous of a young man I once was. With those final words, a mysterious, thick violet smoke began to rise and curl up from his palm, and as the haze slowly dissipated into the cold air, the youthful grandfather vanished completely. Look to Min furrowed his brow and remarked, like grandfather, like grandson. Thi Thi seeing Luong breaking out int. A nervous cold sweat burst int. Loud laughter, while Tan Cam stood frozen, utterly at a loss for what to do. Right at that very moment, everyone heard the echo of 2 distinct words, junior sisters, ringing clearly in their ears, and then they all slipped helplessly into a deep, mesmerizing dream. Tan Cam vaguely perceived a massive, ancient mirror inside of which dark silhouettes were moving back and forth. Stepping closer to the glass, she could see them more clearly, and she could even hear the muffled whispers of the people conversing within the mirror. She decided to sit down directly in front of the colossal mirror, which loomed as large as a wall. Sitting beside her were the other Thrilek, 2 Min, Luong, and Thi Thi. They sat in a neat straight row, exactly as if they were sitting in a theater watching a movie. In this bizarre state of mind, they did not realize they were trapped in a dream. Instead, they believed they were actually watching a film. Because of this illusion, they simply turned to each other, giggling softly in the dark.